Take me to another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical, magical land. Magical, magical land. To another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical, magical land.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Connecteurs Innovation Show, where we meet with innovators around the world to connect the dots of innovation. My name is Jens Heitland and I'm the founder of Heitland Innovation. I help people and entrepreneurs to connect the dots of innovation. So today on the show is the adventurer, the innovation expert and mastermind, Ludvig Liljeqvist. So please welcome him to the show. Hi, Ludvig. How are you doing?
Morning, Jens. Good morning. I'm all well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Very, very good.
So, how did you come to this podcast episode? Who are you? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm living in Sweden. I'm Swede. I lived in some 4 or 5 countries. Been around in some places. I now live here back home in Sweden with my partner. We've got 3 kids. I'm born in Sweden. I'm now working with a big company which produces furniture, blue and yellow. And I got into innovation through a lot of different reasons. I guess it's always been pulling me in through different types of jobs, and then it kind of become much more clear to me over the years as one has been working in different fields that this is where I have a lot of energy, a lot of passion.
Yeah. So before we start going into innovation, it's like, which countries did you live in? What did you learn? How did you connect the dots in the different countries?
Yeah, I think it's. I started off first living in France. During my studies, I was supposed to learn French, and then I ended up just speaking English, which is where I kind of developed my English into a certain level, which was quite good. French came along with that. I guess that the international scene then opens up with me. I lived in Aix-en-Provence for some year, and then I went on from that to come back into Sweden, think I will stay there. Then I moved to Småland, which is a small part of the middle of Sweden. I lived there, I met my partner, we went to Australia. Australia then brought me the outdoor life and a lifestyle, which I really enjoyed. In Western Australia, I lived in Perth for a year. Then I moved from Perth come back to Småland, wrap things up, moved then to London and then to France to do a double master within international economy and marketing management, which brought, again, I guess at this point I got connected both the international scene and the people and the network started growing. And this was the time when, what you would have at that time, it's not even Facebook. So I think then I started connecting my English, my French connections, Australian connections. I would then have to do an internship. I went back to Sweden, started working for a global brand in Stockholm, which took me also to be part of that journey, just took me into a Nordic scene, to a global scene, and then started working for a US company. And then after that, got pulled in again to the big blue and yellow box. And that took me from another venture that I went back to. I started working in Belgium, and then I started working in Italy, and then after that I came also to work in Australia, and now I'm back again. So I think a lot of I guess it's coming out in the uncomfortable zone in your private network and feeling that you're only dependent on yourself. I think it makes you challenge yourself and also open up to others in ways that you normally don't do if you sit still at the same place.
Yeah, and as most of the listeners know, I have been traveling around the world and living in different countries as well. And it's like I've been doing this most of the time, at least half of my traveling world without kids. But you have done this with kids. So how did that work out?
Oh, kids are amazing. People are always asking when you go somewhere to say, how's the kids going to deal with that? The kids, they have it easier than us. I think those are the kids are an example how we should, as innovators, things, because they are not afraid to fail in whatever they embark on. And we're sleeping, adjusting, adapting, transforming. That's part of their nature. That's how they grow up to be adults or humans of life. So I think kids has always been the easiest one. Then I think when you stick around with kids makes it more feel like home. It's easy to make home somewhere else when you have kids connected to yourself. That's why I explained. But they are just absorbing everything. Like they speak, they know the language part, the culture thing. Yeah, world will, I'm sure, as we shouldn't travel much, but I think the world will look a lot better if people travel more, because then people get to feel how it is to be them on our side. It's a good way to open up your eyes.
Yeah, and that's same for us. When I always set out to learn myself about different cultures, and the best way to learn it is to travel. I mean, reading books is nice, watching movies, watching documentaries, but it's just a tiny piece, a tiny thing you can get. If you are in a country and you're immersed in the country, it's completely different. And then, as you said, like with kids, it's even better because they are dragging you into the small things which you maybe wouldn't do as an adult. Like, do you go to the playground, you meet the other parents, you go here to the beach, you do this, you do that, and it's like amazing how the world is opening up, and you dive deeper into the different cultures.
Yeah, I guess from the last trip to Australia, one just realized that a lot of the friends we ended up having is through kids, the schools, because they open up. Their network is so much, I should say, easier to connect to, and you're just piggybacking them into their network, and you find the people of like that will match you. So I think kids. And then I think another, I guess, one I've noticed when you go to countries, you experience where countries are in terms of development of certain things, good and bad things, and you see how people live with those. And I think when you connect those dots back to how you live, or whatever business service or everything in the field you are, you start seeing how you can leverage by just copy-pasting things over or connecting things in different ways. It's always super interesting, and I wish I'd done some of those connections as into business adventures at one point, but it's still
time.
It's still time. It is.
So how is it coming home after a couple of years being outside of your country? I'm just experiencing this being back home in Germany for 4 months now, roughly. How was it for you?
Yeah, I think I put a cushion from moving from Australia, which is far away from the Nordic lives in Sweden. I think the cushion for me was Denmark. So I kind of did I did a year, 1.5 years in Denmark, just to land a bit. So Copenhagen has a very international scene. I think it helps me. My work does expose me to a lot of people, working with people from all over the world. So it gives me that connection and those dots to connect to people around the world, how life are looking and how people are working. I think that helped a lot to make it kind of smooth in the process. I think coming home, a key part for us is just the system that operates in Sweden, which is quite similar to Germany. It is making life a lot easier for both partners to be able to work and have a work-life balance together with 3 children, which is our case. I think coming home, that was the key part for me. That you need to, in order to operate in kind of, we love Australia, we love a lot of places, but I think Sweden is good for us in this phase where we're at now. It provides a lot of it makes life better. In many ways.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Especially with kids, is one of the best countries, or small kids definitely is the best country to live in. Yeah. So moving from your travel life to the innovation piece. So what does innovation mean to you?
It's a good question. Well, like so many times it reminds me how when I hear people speak about innovation, it reminds me how I used to look at it, that it's just incremental development of things. And I think through our discussions, Jens, as I kind of connected to you some 2 or 3 years ago, I think that it's starting to open up. And my view on the innovation today is much different, I think. For me, innovation is, it's always connected to the world around us, how things are moving and how things are being connected. And it's some type of development, which could be in many cases the exponential development. And I think innovation is just is a proof point if you're, in essence, keeping up with the world around you, whatever that world could be. It could be it could be your local community, it could be your industry, it could be the world for some. But I think innovation is that humans has always, and animals has always been, by the Darwinism, it's not the biggest and strongest that survive. It's the ones that could really adapt, and more than adapt, transform if you go into the resilient thinking. And that's for me the most interesting, that how do I adapt and even more transform, and transformative part of disruptions is what I see as innovation, real innovation. That is something new, not for me, but also for what I work with, for the industry, for the people connected to that. And it can't be just business development, which is often wrongly referred to as innovation, which is something different.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's way too many big companies who are just doing tiny steps and don't risk anything.
No, but I think, and risking is it is about the human behaviors. We always think about by changing, what do I lose is the first thing. Never think about the gaining part. And I think that when you go into innovation, there are those dilemmas that one needs to refer to. But it is about, for me, it's about being comfortable in the uncomfortable zone. Because I need to remember, every time I feel uncomfortable in embarking on something or doing something, it means that I'm learning. And then if I connect other people who feels the same, it creates a group that we are onto something which is new. And then it feels like innovation. But if it's something we've done before and we're just trying to get the extra 2% or 10% on top of something else, then it's business development, which we need to continue. But when I feel really uncomfortable, then I know I'm doing something fun and something I will learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. So was it like, I think we talked a year ago about a project, an initiative you have been doing with innovation topics, which was around a comic book. So can you tell a bit about the story and how you associate comics with innovation?
It's part of a...
If you can share it, you don't need to share the details.
No.
But
No, I can share it. I think it's good to discuss and find ways together to make things more available for more people. And I think the starting point for that project was something bigger. We looked into the future, and we tried to describe how the future could look like. You never know how it's going to look and play out. So when you get into scenario planning or something, but we took a lot of inspiration in that project from how big movies do build up world views on how a possible future can look like. And when you do bigger research projects as to trying to describe a possible world as a totality, if you've seen Avatar or you've seen Harry Potter or Blade Runner, whatever you can refer in your head that put that mental meaning, it needs to be a lot of components which you then tell a story through that. And the story is, we know this, humans are ready to understand stories more than they are ready to understand facts and figures. Yeah. And when we start telling stories, it changes the narrative, and its persuasion power is much stronger. So what in this, which was aimed to be an internal focus, the comic book, was just an experiment to take research out to the extent that we can actually visualize it. So we can use imagery, we could use a story, we could use text, facts, findings in different way to tell something which would be which you could read in. You can get a text report and we see these things. It's like climate change. Read this 100-page report and you will understand what kind of devastating future we're heading towards if we don't change our ways of doing things. But that might not reach the many people, and is not accessible in how people. So the comic book was a test to trying to make it much more accessible, something very big and complex to more people.
What do you struggle most with innovation topics?
A very good question. I think some of the big struggles, I need to start somewhere, so it's a very good question. I think innovation is somewhere, where do we start it? What's the starting point of it? And I think if you're connected to something which is working really well, why do you need to innovate? It's been working, it's still working today. We could see a small decline, and then you come, and then suddenly you realize you need to change. And I think disruption, for me at least, it seems to happen quicker and quicker. And it's especially on a big scheme of a lot of how things are exponentially developing in the world, and how and exponentiality comes from both digitalization, it comes to connecting some of these developments together. If it's urbanization together with digitalization together with other things, and it's so complex for people to see, and it just happens. And I think that's, for me at least, it is the hard part to understand where to put our efforts into that, and also how do we structure and organize around that to be on top of it, on the front foot, not on the back foot. And I think one way could work as like, needs to be a long-term thing. You are working a proactive or reactive mode. Because I can see from research that things will not, it could be a dystopic future, it could be an utopic future that we'd like to create together. But I think one needs to attack both of those. Because I think people are to somewhat in agency of control of our futures we want to create. My personal future, the future of this planet, which will survive, humans might not in the end. But that's a decision humans make.
We will see.
We will see. But I think one needs to understand that it's these big changes is for me. How do we innovate for a better future? We need to both innovate for the small disruptions. When I say small, I refer to floodings or some of the climate change impact we see now. COVID is just an example of that. Small things to find ways how do we allow humans to be adapting to these new circumstances which are created by this. And then at the same time, we need to prevent them from having the system point collapse, which is happening and will happen. And I think that's, for me, when I see innovation, it's, do we put all our eggs in one basket, or should we put them both? Proactively and reactively develop solutions for those scenarios.
Yeah. When you just said, it's like, for me, what I've experienced, it's a lot about mindset. It's a lot about how you think about the world and how you think about yourself and being able to innovate. What are your thoughts on mindset of innovation?
I think mindset is very good. I think and I come back to what I said earlier. I think the mindset of innovation, and people who do connect to innovation or need to understand innovation needs to understand that it's not a clear-cut business case. You can't do innovation as you do business development or any other line organization. But it needs to be something different. It is by default something we don't know. It is something impossible that we might do possible. And in that journey, we will find so many ways that it's not possible. It's still impossible, but it might be one of those ways. Could be it showing it being possible. I think the mindset needs to be working quick to test things directly. And that comes to enablement of people to actually do those things, that people have the feel they have or in agency of doing testing and trying, failing quickly, which I think is part of how we see innovation. And then also having people very used to working in the uncomfortable zone of the unknown and moving into that. And I think that's where you just have to have a good setup for trusting people to have the right, in essence, the right mindset to move into those areas and report back that it's not working or it is working. Which is, of course,
Yeah. And even to that point is even having the trust in yourself that you're like, yeah, I will face a situation where it's not working, but I will push through it. I will turn around. I will figure out how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And also sometimes it could be kill your darlings. Like you come to a point where it was brilliant, like the starting point, everything has been, until up to this point. And it could just mean that timing-wise, this is not the right thing right here that works. But at one point, it could be the right timing. But then abandon that idea and then move on or find another way to approach that problem, that innovation. And I think that's where, I guess it's a tactical thing as well. The mindset of people in this, they need to be seeing the real problem. We sometimes invent problems. Sometimes it's a problem for the company, not the people out there. So we're innovating for ourselves, which is of course could be a success to some degree. But I think if you really want to change the lives for many people, you need to see the real people and what their problems are. And sometimes we don't take that leap to see that.
What did you learn in the last couple of weeks through innovation?
Last couple of weeks.
Or months.
Months. No, it's always
days.
I think through innovation, I think it's one thing is I learned it can be applied in so many ways. Mindsets. I'm using it now for strategic work, and it's just when you continue to push things to do things differently. I think that gives new angles on things. Because if you just continue to do the same thing and expect the same results, of course, that is one way. But then why do we need to change anything? And then a changing perspective of things. And innovation helps me that to lead some strategic work, I think, in a way that helps, which is really good. The other thing I think is, it's just the realization, as we all experience, COVID-19, like the world, COVID-19 is making life for humans with less quality in certain aspects, however you define a better life in that. So I think that's interesting to see, and it's sad to see, of course. But at the same time, all other metrics when it comes to planet, it's showing progress in the right direction. And I think one learned just from an outside-in perspective, it's just seeing these, as we think the life for humans becomes worse, it becomes better for other parts of it. And I think that we need to understand the balance we want to create in the world, and where we need to innovate in order to allow both to thrive, the ecological, environmental aspect as well as other.
Yeah.
And then the last part, I think, is when you speak about human brain storytelling and you're trying to do persuasive, there are so much research when you get into neuroscience that speaks to how do we talk and communicate things, and how you trigger people to feel empathy or understanding or whatever you want to feel. It's so many techniques in there that could be applied to how we develop our stories for innovation, why we need to innovate things, which I think is a super. It could also be used for, which it is, when Patagonia is doing their commercials, or Disney, which is a good storytelling unit. And I think that's for me. It's a lot of power in that because it's just been developed. Yeah, human brains are rigged for storytelling, which I think is there's a lot of power in that, and also a lot of research and books, which I enjoy.
Yeah, you have posted yesterday a story about Patagonia. Can you give a little bit explanation why you shared that?
I think,
and what it was.
What it was an article. They had this years ago. This ad in the newspaper said, "Don't buy this jacket," which was in essence a provocation towards people to say, "Use what you have, buy what you have, buy things that you really need, which has durability, repair it, reuse it, etc." The point, and I think what they did this weekend by Black Friday, was to have buy less, demand more. It's the new slogan. And I think it is interesting as they're provoking not only people, but also industry partners too. And I think mostly it's going to be they're using people activism to, in essence, trigger people to say, we should demand more from companies, governments, and others in this space. And the stories they have done, it's like, we are all screwed, it starts to. And this is, if you want to look into it, Google narrative persuasion. This is exactly storytelling, when they're using a storytelling line. How humans reads in message, which is on bullet. It's about 6-7 lines. We are screwed. If you read it from top down, it looks very dystopic. If you read it from bottom up, it's very positive. It shows a positive narrative for the future in how we should act and tackle the future. And I think it is exactly that with narrative persuasion, that you need to understand humans read things in certain way. And when you go in on a level of negative, should I say, statements, then you rig your brain for negative, and everything else is negative after that.
Yeah.
And when it goes stone positive, it's different. And it's just simple techniques how to trick the brain. And this story, and then the story in itself is quite interesting to stay quite provocative.
Yeah. Staying in social media, one of the top topics I always ask my people, and you haven't known this before. So explain the pig, which is I'm checking your social media and figuring out. And then I realized yesterday that we're not connected on Instagram. Shit, I can't look. But I found you on Facebook because we're friends there. There was a photo from 15th of December 2015. You are standing behind a huge surfboard, which is saying surf rescue, and a lot of people with silly dresses, or like it's not silly dresses, it's like whatever the surf costume.
You're shaming the life surf. That's the official suit for lifesavers around the world. Who saves lives, Jens? I didn't design it, but I see it. Yeah.
What is the story behind that?
Now, the story is that we moved to Australia. The community aspect in Australia is super, we like it, I should say. And one way to get into the community is surf. And when people say surf, it is wave surf, it's body surf, it could be all types of surf. But the lifesavers are a community that operates in Australia for many years, it's been around. They, in essence, patrol the beach voluntarily. It's a voluntary business. Your organization, you go in and you get something back. You give. So I think my story was that I tried to get my kid into so-called nippers. Nippers is when the kids from 5 to 12 years old in Australia meets on the weekends to get together and learn how to be in surf, in the waves, and swim and run. It's like a multi-sport activity for some hours. People have their coffee. It's super nice, very good to get the community together on the beach. I tried to get him in. I didn't get him in because he was too young. So then the guy's like, but what about you? And being as a former triathlete, been into swimming, all surf and everything, I thought, I don't know. And then they opened the toolbox where they had all the toys, all the surfboards. You get access to all this, and the gym, and the pub down on the beach, and we do this and that, and you just have to go. And then I was in. And then suddenly I was there doing my swim laps for the trial, doing like running, swim runs all over the place. I was probably one through the introduction education who hurt myself the most. The guys, they shake their heads because I kept on stepping on sea urchins, the spiky guys. They penetrated my foot. I had one thing which since I biked to work and back, I was dehydrated, so I passed out on one of the things. And the guy's like, we need to save you. You need to save others. This is not working out. But I stuck to it. I had the guys from Bondi, and they passed me on the final test. So on the final test, we're on Coogee Beach, which this image is taken, with these silly hats, which is like the official suit when you kind of get into the surf lifesavers. And it just is a really nice community where I got to, you get to speak to people, help people, and it's volunteer. And of course, volunteering on the side of having small children is not maybe optimal, but if you have a very understanding partner, I managed to get away for it during my time in Australia, for sure. So it's life-saving. But actually, Jens, I found it back here in Sweden. There's some very entrepreneurs who started up this down where I live now. So suddenly my kid is into it now, and maybe they try to recruit me in as well. So far, I'm donating stuff only to them, to their toy shed. But
it's just because of the cold weather, I guess.
Yeah, but
the cold water.
Yeah, but the guys are. Yeah, I like the cold water, but I think the guys there they do amazing work, and we have a lot of kite surfing things. So when I was out kite surfing a month ago, there was a guy who broke his neck on the beach, and the lifesavers, the last day of patrolling that beach, just meant that they saved him, but he was paralyzed from the neck down through the impact. He was thrown into the sandbank. But I think it's just they do amazing work, and they do a lot of fun sports.
Nice. So going a little bit back to innovation, if you would have the chance to share one innovation with everyone in the world, what would it be and why?
One innovation, if I could share one.
Or experience innovation.
Oh, I didn't see this question coming my way. But
that's why I'm not sharing the questions before.
Yes, it makes sense from that perspective. One innovation for the many people, something that could meet many people. I guess it's just because I'm connected to some of the research that we do right now and things. I think I would like to find one innovation could be how do you make something complex and wicked as some of the problems that we are facing right now? How do you make it understandable for the many people? How do we make sure we all see the same pictures? The polarization of things and the deniers of climate change. It's just I see my children, I think about their future, and I see what I managed to experience traveling, which you also have done. And I think one innovation would be to like to see it's somewhere to make it understandable for the many people, the problem, but also the solutions. It can't only be the problems, because then you get people anxious and worried and paralyzed in their action of not behaving in any good way. So I think we just need to, how do we make people understand the challenges and the ways we need to change? And I think that would be my innovation for the many people, hopefully.
Nice. So slowly going to an end, starting with the last couple of questions. So where will you be in a year from now? And what has happened?
First off, I hope COVID-19 is not here anymore, but that's just a 2020 thing, hopefully. But it might risk of staying a little bit longer. A year from now, I see myself still in Sweden working with what I've done. I think working with innovation in a way that we probably kind of have even more transformative initiatives that speaks to some of which is my primary focus right now. I look at 3 wicked problems in the world and trying to understand how we can innovate or necessarily find intervention points in those systems, in those in those systems, but those wicked problems that exist within those systems, such as social, economical, and environmental. So I'm thinking of, hopefully we come up with a good way of trying to tackle them in new ways which we haven't considered before. And it's not just being us, but it's together with others. I think that's, hopefully that's where I see it. And my children will be older, so that'd be more, hopefully they take care of themselves more, but still wants to spend time with me, which is always, if it is in the innovator's dilemma of things, it is the parents' dilemma of things, like how much you want them to be free and do their own thing at the same time spend time with you. So hopefully they still want to spend time with me. Christmas tends to be a time when we gather around the coziness, at least in Sweden. The darkness brings people indoor and closer to each other and doing fun stuff. So hopefully I'll be doing a lot of that next Christmas as well.
So where can people find you and reach out to you?
I think I need to confess, you mentioned Instagram and Facebook. I haven't been on those for some time. It's encouragement come through the social dilemma, like we all see documentary and other things, and attention economy. I think I'm a better person when I get to not get distracted. But when I allow myself to be distracted, of course, it's normal channels, but LinkedIn would be the only thing I still hang on to. That's why I'm posting there still, yes. So LinkedIn would be the way. At least we don't know next year. Maybe I'm gone from that as well next year. And then it will be, we all be in isolation. We'll not be connecting anymore in the same way.
Then it's just phone.
No.
Just need to make your phone number available for everyone who has questions.
No, I like mixed reality and virtual reality, but I'm not. I'm still exploring that, but I think it's not for the many people yet. But it will be a time to connect maybe more in that space.
I was talking to Anna about that last week. She's the queen of virtual reality.
It's interesting. It's so much in timing. Because I remember when we did with IBM Second Life, which was in the early 2000 something, when we launched the Ambassador of Sweden in there. We launched. I was part of launching the first recruitment company within Second Life, and you realize it was just a bit too early, which is about timing again. And now it might be the right time for more the avatars and the virtual thing to come about. But we'll see. Maybe next year in VR.
Yes. Cool. Thank you for making the time, spending about an hour with me today. It was awesome talking to you, and hope we will connect again soon and more often. My name is Jens Heitland. I'm the founder of Heitland Innovation. I empower entrepreneurs to connect the dots of innovation. So if you like what you have heard, what you have seen, please follow me on all the social media. Share this video, share it with your friends, share it with your family, and come back next time. Thank you very much, Ludvig, and see you soon.
Thank you, Jens.
Take me to another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical land, magical land. To another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical